The integration knowledge area has 7 processes that span all 5 process groups. Our first process in the initiating process group is develop project charter. It does what the name implies. It creates the charter, thus giving birth to the project. It also creates an assumption log, which we want to create as early as possible and then continue to build on as we go throughout the life of the project, and this is as early as that can be built. Now from there we get into planning, where we create the project management plan. So the process there is called develop project management plan. It is a planning process, group process. And what it does, it takes the charter and gets into more detail, thus the more detailed plan. It also takes outputs from any and all planning processes that basically come together to make that overall plan. So we could use expert judgment or checklists to make sure that we've got all the pieces necessary to complete the plan to get started and then build on it as we go. Now, one thing I want to point out here before we get too far into this overview video is a lot of people think I initiate, I plan, I execute, I do one then the other then the other. And generally that's the case, but just because you're in planning doesn't mean you can't go back to initiating. Just because you're in executing doesn't mean you can't go back to planning. So, these are process groups, not necessarily phases. Now, our next process is in executing. It is direct and manage project work. So basically this is creating deliverables. So this is taking the plan and doing it and creating deliverables, and also an issue log so we can keep track of issues that come up and then manage them accordingly. Now from there we get into our newest process in integration in this PMBOK guide, manage project knowledge. So this gives us a lessons learned register. So what we're doing here is basically staying on top of project knowledge and information and basically trying to do the project thus as efficient and effectively as possible, and then potentially applying these lessons learned to future projects. Our next process occurs in monitoring and controlling. It is called monitor and control project work. So what we're doing here is we're watching and we're adjusting if necessary. So we watch. If things are on track, we stay the course. If we need to make adjustments, speed it up, slow it down, spend more here, spend less there, put somebody over here, take somebody from over there. Those are the sort of things that can come from this process. So thus work performance reports could give us guidance to make adjustments to the overall plan. And thus change requests could be created. Our next process is also in monitoring and controlling. This is perform integrated change control. This is your master change control process. Every process that creates a change request, that change request comes to this process for yay or nay, yes or no. And so coming out of this, you have ideally approved changes. At a minimum, you have a change log where you're keeping track of it's been approved, rejected, put on hold for now. And then also potentially any component of the overall project management plan can be updated potentially based on approved change requests. Now our final process for this overview video is close project or phase, which happens in the closing process group. In fact, this is now the only process in the closing process group. And so when we think about what we're doing here is we're taking deliverables, accepted deliverables that have come from the validate scope process. We're comparing them to the overall plan, perhaps a business case if applicable, to see how well whatever has been created aligns with what we were after. So we could use variance analysis to see if things are on track or not, or if we've produced what we're supposed to or not. And coming out of this, the main output is going to be the final product, service, or result transition. Not just here's a product, but it's transitionable into the organization. Thus it's sellable, shippable, supportable, if you will. Now, we also could have updates to our lessons learned register as a result of closing the project. In fact, if we don't, that would be a surprise to me. So with this video, we have 7 processes across all 5 process groups. This is kind of a higher level knowledge area because a lot of the other knowledge areas give the substance to it. So this kind of provides the framework to all the other knowledge areas, if you will. but we had developed project charter and initiating. We had developed project management plan and planning. We had direct and managed project work and managed project knowledge and executing. We had monitor and control project work and perform integrated change control, both in monitoring and controlling. And then we had close project or phase and closing.